Hello, my art history students. Welcome to our lecture about prehistoric art. Let's get started. So what I wanted you to look at here is kind of this huge range of dates that we have when we talk about prehistoric art. Prehistoric, of course, means prehistory, before history is recorded. And so we're doing a lot of guessing, and that's why you see this huge range of dates, right? 600,000 to 10,000, or 35,000 to 7,000. So we're going to be talking about Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. And Neo, of course, means a huge range of dates, and Neo means new art. Prehistory is important because we talk about prehistoric, and it really is a term that refers to all of human history that precedes the invention of writing. And we're going to learn next lecture that writing, cuneiform writing, is invented and recorded right around 3100 BC. So that's an important kind of benchmark for you guys to keep in mind. But when I say the word BC, when we're talking about time and timelines, what are we referring to? And so I wanted you guys to have a look at this here, okay? And I didn't update it yet, but here it says 2017 or 18, but you know, this is the present. And just so you guys know, we typically talk about the year 0 as the year that Christ is born, right? And so everything before that, we say BC, before Christ, or some people say BCE, before the Common Era. And after the year 0, we typically say CE or AD, the Common Era, or after the death of Christ, right? So when we talk about today, right, we're in the year 2020. What century are we in? We are in the 21st century, right? This is the 21st century. We're in the year 2020. So the same thing works when we're talking about dating and timelines. When we're talking about the 7th century BCE, it's all the years that are in the 600s. When we're talking about the 1st century CE, it's all the years between 0 and 100. This is not a critical thing. I don't want you guys to stress over this, but it is important if you haven't learned about it to sort of think about these things, and just to understand that we do talk about dates, and that I want you guys to kind of know what we're talking about when we do talk about dates. There's a really interesting Khan Academy video, sort of common questions about dates that you can check out if you're interested in looking at that. So the birth of art really begins with the Old Stone Age. That's when our book talk begins, and that's what we start talking about. And what's important for you to understand is the word paleo means old, paleo, and lithic means stone. So we're going to be talking about a lot of old stones. And in the Paleolithic world, there are no metal tools. This is what we call Stone Age technology. And we're going to be talking about two kinds of art: stationary art, which is going to be the paintings on the cave walls. So that's stationary. It means it's still, it doesn't move. And mobile art, which means art that can actually be small enough to fit in your pocket and move around and be carried around with you. As I mentioned, in the Paleolithic world, paleo means old and lithic means stone. And here you see a beautiful little 10-inch high element that was probably some sort of a tool that was made. It could have been a weapon. It could have been sort of at the end of an arrow. And even in sort of something that's 60,000 years ago, we see the intelligence and the way that Paleolithic people are, adjusting and working in their particular environments so that they can survive. The other thing that's interesting is that on this archaeological dig in this area in South Africa, from about 70,000 BCE, we found these shells, which are really beautiful, And that, in fact, we think that these were used for decoration. You can see the markings here on the tools, the markings on the stone, and that perhaps necklaces were made. Um, and what's interesting is that, when somebody is going to make something for decoration, for art, or to wear something that is, say, jewelry, it teaches us that these are people who are making art that is beyond just survival mode, right? It goes beyond basic subsistence. And so the beads that were made from shells, it's evidence, we have evidence that shows that they were strung beads. They were possibly for necklaces, for decoration. They potentially could have been used for some sort of a barter or other thing as well. So it's very, very interesting. And I like to just kind of have my students understand that this is a big deal. When we look at the map of things that have been found from this time period, these are typically the areas that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at these caves in France and some other Venus figures that have been found in what is today Germany. Just because these are the areas that we're looking at does not mean that this is the only place where prehistoric man existed. Prehistoric man people. When I say man, I do sometimes mistakenly say that I mean men and women, of course. Prehistoric people. It doesn't mean that this is the only place where they were, right? It just means that this is the only place archaeologists have found things up until this point. So it's important that you guys kind of keep that in mind. So this is an important kind of summary of what we're going to be looking at. You guys should feel free to screenshot this if you want, or simply kind of take down the notes, right? That the key points that we're going to be learning and that you should have sort of gathered from the book is that the main art forms are cave paintings and small sculptures. That the primary themes in art are animals and hunting and fertility, right? If you think about kind of what they have to deal with, what their life is about, that's what it is. If your life is about survival and in the caves and you're a prehistoric person, what you care about is hunting and fertility, reproducing so that you can survive. Two kinds of art, either stationary, which would be art that doesn't move, so it's painted on the walls, or portable. And we're going to be looking at the Venus figurines. We're going to talk about the hunter-gatherer lifestyle. Prehistory, as I said, means we have no written records from this period. And although the art represents a significant jump in human development, we are still not 100% sure what the art was used for, why they made particular paintings, because there is no recorded history, right? So we're guessing. We're guessing. We're going to talk about the Venus figures, these mostly female figurines that are small enough to fit in your hands, that have exaggerated fertility aspects of their bodies, their breasts, their belly, and their hips, and sort of minimized faces, feet, and hands. And then we're going to talk about the cave paintings that are painted with things like charcoal and blood and minerals that might give the artist a yellow color or a red color, and how realistic those are, the different sizes, and all of that. So this is a really kind of important slide. Typically, when we are in class, I put this slide up and I ask my students to look at it for a few minutes and then turn away and draw it kind of on their own, just from their memory. And I often ask students to have one person turn around and to describe it to the other person, okay? But this is kind of like the main figure that we're going to look at when we call these figures a Venus figure. And I want you guys to look at this kind of series of information that you see here on the left, the same way you would see this information in your book. This is telling us a lot about the figure, okay? It's telling us the title of the figure. Typically, you know, today artists give their paintings or their sculptures their titles, correct? But here, we don't know what the person who made this Venus figure called her, so we're calling her either Nude Woman or Venus. Venus of Willendorf, which is actually a misnomer, we're going to talk about it. Willendorf because that's where she was found, and you see that from Willendorf. Here's the guess of how old she is, 28,000 to 25,000 BCE, that's the guess. Here is what she is made out of, that is called the medium, M-E-D-I-U-M. The medium is limestone, okay? The next piece of information is that she's about 4¼ inches high, and that's really important, right? Because when you look at this picture, you don't know how tall this sculpture is. It could be 5 feet tall. So this is an important thing for you guys to all look at and say, oh, okay, I get it. She's 4¼ inches high. And then the last piece of information is typically where she is. So we don't know what her purpose is, right? We think that she is, and I'll show you another slide of her, right? She is not an erotic or a sexual figure, but some sort of a fetish figure, maybe to direct spiritual energy. She is really a fertility figure. And you can see here that the details are quite clear. I'm going to show you another image, right? We have very little information about her face. There's nothing here. She has this kind of symbolic representation of her hair. She's got very developed kind of parts of her body, her breasts, her belly, that would be representative of fertility. And look here, you can see that her arms are actually coming down and they're folded across the top of her chest, right? So the word Venus is wrong because Venus isn't invented till much later. Venus was the name of the Roman goddess of love and beauty. So scholars, when they discovered this object, mistakenly assumed that she was a figure of love and beauty, but we really don't know, right? We don't know. But what we do know is that this figure represents a healthy woman who could bear children, and that other figures very, very similar to this have been found throughout Europe. So think about, you know, this culture and what they value, and then you can sort of think about our culture, right? And here's an image of a Barbie. Like, is that what our culture values? And it's just something to think about that I wanted to point out to you all. So the Venus figures. There is a video that I want you guys to watch. I'm not going to insert it into the into this lecture right now. You go to Khan Academy, you put in Venus of Willendorf video, or you go to Smart History and you put in the Venus of Willendorf video. I believe that I have it linked for you guys. Let me see. Do I have it here? Sorry. Yeah, I believe that I have it linked for you in the syllabus. Let me double check. Hold on. Yeah, so you will go to Khan Academy and you'll put in Venus of Willendorf, and this video will come up. So I will try to put that into your list that we have for the course, for the videos that I want you guys to watch, okay? But it's pretty easy and straightforward to find, the Venus of Willendorf. Okay. So just to go over what I told you about reading this, the side, this is an important note for you guys to have for the rest of the course. The information that we have that's listed, as I mentioned, the first thing is typically the title, or the name, and we don't know what the artist named her, so someone else named her. The second item on the list, number 2, is where she's from, where she was found. The third item is the date. And here, of course, it is a 3,000-year range. The fourth item is the medium, right? What is it made out of? The fifth item is the size. And the sixth item is where it is right now, where this object resides. So yeah, there have been lots of incredible Venus figures found in different parts of the world. And here you can see some of them. And this is actually a very cool picture of an archaeological dig. So I thought that that was fun for you guys to see what an archaeological dig actually looks like. This is a different kind of sculpture. We call it relief sculpture, R-E-L-I-E-F, relief sculpture. And relief sculpture is different than what we just looked at in terms of the Venus of Willendorf, okay? The Venus of Willendorf is a freestanding sculpture. You can like hold it, so it's about 4 1/4 inches high. You can hold it, you can put it in your pocket, you can carry it around. It's freestanding. A relief sculpture is still attached to the stone or the column or the wall that it is carved into. It's literally a carving. And so I want you guys to understand the difference between freestanding and relief sculpture, okay? And you can see that this one was found in a different part of, this is not from Germany, it's from France. You can see again kind of the similar body type, her big swollen fertility aspects of her body, but she's holding, you know, this horn, and the question is she getting ready to call for the hunt? You know, what's happening? What is she doing? And why is she holding that horn? These are some really cool bison that were made out of clay, and I wanted you to see them. These were found in this cave also. And this is all part of kind of the Paleolithic art. But what's interesting is, you know how you find sometimes a stone or a rock on the beach, and you look at it and it kind of reminds you of a shape, or it says, oh, I just found this. This looks like a heart, for example. Well, we think that the artist who used this, which is actually made out of reindeer horn, as you can see, found this piece of horn and carved this beautiful little sculpture. What's interesting and important, and the reason I wanted to just point this out to you, is this is a hard thing to do, right? To make something that is actually turning its head back on itself. And so I wanted you to notice, again, this thing is probably, 20,000 years old. Sorry, 14,000 years old, right? 12,000 BCE plus 2020 is 14,020, right? And look at this beautiful, the carving, each individual hair and all of the details. So it's painstakingly created, depicting, very, very specific features. And I wanted you guys to just really, really see that. So this is some of the Paleolithic sculpture I wanted you guys to see. And now I want to talk about the cave paintings, okay? The cave paintings are sort of a completely different element, right? A completely different animal. And as we said at the beginning, we were going to be talking about two kinds of art here, the mobile and the stationary. And clearly this is the stationary art, things that don't move. I want you guys to look at this, okay, and understand that right now this cave painting is being lit artificially, right? But when Paleolithic people would have made all of these paintings on the wall, they would have only had a very small lamp. They would have only had, kind of a small light with, burning oil of animal fat. And just this little area where they were working would have been lit. So when we look at these big slides, we see the whole wall, and it's not at all the way Paleolithic people, experienced this. The other thing that's really interesting and really important to remember, and some of you guys might have taken, say, a drawing class, right? You know that when you take a drawing class and you're supposed to be drawing either a nude figure or a still life, that you have it in front of you, right? And you get to look back and forth at what you're drawing. But here, clearly, when they were in a cave, right, they didn't have these things in front of them. They had to draw completely from their memory. So what's going on here? Why are Paleolithic artists making these cave paintings deep inside the caves, right? It's very deep in the caves. It's not near where they're living, kind of near the mouth of the cave. What's going on? What is the purpose of the cave paintings? And there are all different theories of what's going on and why these paintings would have been made. One of the most beautiful, we're going to come back to this one in a minute, but one of the most beautiful series of paintings that have been created are called the horse paintings. And I want you guys to try to watch a little bit of this video, The Cave of Forgotten Dreams at Chauvet, which is this beautiful documentary. You see it here. I found it through YouTube. If you just put this in, you can see it. Actually, I may show you a little bit in a second. But these cave paintings of these, here they are, sorry, these spotted horses are considered to me to be some of the most incredible and the most beautiful cave paintings anywhere. Because of the way they're painted, because of the incredible realism and shadow, light and shadow, to make something look three-dimensional. That's extremely, extremely difficult to do, right? To make something look three-dimensional like that. So here it is. I want you guys to see this.
This cave had been perfectly sealed for tens of thousands of years. It contained by far the oldest paintings ever discovered. It is as if the modern human soul had awakened here. This is one of the rare times anyone is allowed inside the cave. This may be the only and last opportunity to film inside.
The first time I entered a cave, it was so powerful. Every night I was dreaming of lions.
There are no barriers between the world where we are and the world of the spirits. A wall can talk to us.
After 5 days, I decided not to go back in the cave because it was an emotional shock.
These images are memories of long forgotten dreams. Will we ever be able to understand the vision of the artists across such an abyss of time?
Silence, please. We're going to listen to the cave, and perhaps we can even hear our own heartbeats.
So I hope you enjoyed that incredible trailer. If you want, you can watch the whole thing. But I feel like it brings us there. It brings us sort of the sensation of what it might have been like, not only to be in the cave creating the paintings, but then, of course, to be discovering them as the archaeologists did. And that these horse panels are really among the most spectacular that have been found, that really show a sophisticated technique of representation, where tools are used to smudge, to blend the charcoal, to create these gradations and half tones. And that's what we're going to learn is called modeling and shadowing and creating a sense of space and shape and depth. And remember, these artists are doing this all from their imagination. They don't have the images of the horse standing in front of them as a model, the way you would in a classroom. So what's really interesting, I'm going to see if I can click on this, if this is going to work. Yeah, this is sort of a virtual tour of the cave at Lascaux that I had recorded for you guys through an interesting app. Have a look and you can see what it would have felt like to be coming through this cave and seeing all the paintings. You guys get it. It's really quite remarkable. And so here's sort of the big one, the big cave at Lascaux in France, the most photographed one. And it's called the Hall of Bulls. Clearly, you can see why. And remember the way we're seeing it right now, which is a sort of an entire wall filled with bulls. The artists who were making these paintings would never have seen this lit up, illuminated like this, right? This is being lit with modern technology. It is, considered to be among the most spectacular caves. It was only discovered in 1940, interestingly, by 4 teenagers and their dog. It's kind of a really interesting story. They were playing outside and the dog ran and they kind of went into this cave, almost like an Alice in Wonderland situation. But how it's painted is really what we're interested in, right? To think about the space between the bulls, the overlapping of the bulls, the composition, and kind of all of the symbols that are involved here that we need to kind of take apart. There are nearly 2,000 figures in this cave, and they are in 3 main categories, mostly bulls. There are also horses. There are some figures, human figures, very, very small amount, and then there are some abstract signs. So we are always sort of wondering, like, hey, what's going on? Why is it represented in this way? And so these are kind of some details, and I want to talk to you a little bit about, what is the recipe that these artists are using for the paint and for the different colors, right? Because clearly, if I said to you, okay, where are they getting the black from? You're probably going to guess accurately charcoal, right? But what about the other colors? Red, is it blood or is it some sort of a mineral from a stone that they have available to them? Probably both, yellow minerals and this kind of thing, right? So we're talking about the pigments and the charcoal and all of that. This is an interesting plan, and I think this is in your book, where you can see that a lot of the paintings were found in different parts of the cave, right? Not near the entrance, not near the door, but quite a bit of a ways inside. And the question is, again, why? Clearly, if the decorations, if the wall paintings are not where Paleolithic people live, then it's not art as just art for decoration. It has some other function, and this is what we've been trying to guess at and try to determine. for many years. Here's another video you guys can watch if you'd like. It's the great travel documentarian Rick Steves, and it's his tour through the caves. Let's just watch it, just a couple seconds of
From
it.
about 18,000 until 10,000 BC, long before Stonehenge and the pyramids, back when mammoths and saber-toothed cats still roamed the earth, prehistoric people painted deep inside caves in this part of Europe. These weren't just crude doodles, but huge and sophisticated projects, executed by artists and supported by an impressive culture, the Magdalenians. The region's limestone cliffs, honeycombed with painted caves, are unique on this planet. Tourists gather nearby at Lascaux, home of the region's and the world's most famous cave paintings. When their time comes, visitors are called to meet their guide for a look at the precisely copied cave called Lascaux II.
Then we are a sacred place. We don't live in a church.
So you heard what he said. It's not the original cave. It's an exact reproduction because the original cave is now closed to visitors. There was a lot of destruction. Listen, after this cave survived for, 24,000 years, then when tourists started going in after 1940 and breathing in and out and the carbon dioxide and the moisture from people's breath, the cave started to deteriorate. So, in fact, there is a reproduction cave, and here they are looking.
They never lived in the caves. And it's a huge composition. It's a calculated composition because they have taken advantage of the strip of rock to relate in a circle two groups almost facing each other. And in the center of this composition, they have united the three. The image becomes the memory of the society. The heart of Lascaux is supposed to be around 17,000 years old. But compared to...
Okay, so you guys get it. It's a really cool video. If you want to watch it, please feel free to. It's another kind of actual move into the caves. But I want to show you two very, very specific paintings and just talk about them for a couple of minutes. This one, okay, the spotted horse and the negative handprints. This always has a really big impact on me. I want you guys to look here, right? Look at the handprint. Okay, 24,000 years ago, someone put their hand up and made that. And to me, I always feel a connection to this person. But the question is, how did they do this? How did they get the negative hand imprint? And also, how did they get the spots from the horse onto the wall? Think about that for a minute. Well, what we found out is that not only are they using brushes and things to put on the actual pigment, but they're literally using some sort of a tube like a straw. They're taking the pigment, right, the charcoal, and they're chewing it in their mouth, and they're mixing it with their saliva, which becomes the binder, the thing that holds the pigment together. So pigment is typically a color. If you want black, it's going to be charcoal. If you want red, it's going to be some sort of a mineral. If you want yellow, it's probably going to be some sort of a mineral, right? And then the saliva becomes the pigment, the binder, the thing that holds the pigment together. And there's also even a more beautiful, more spiritual, abstract reason for this, that in a way, if the artist takes this paint, this pigment, and chews it up and spits it out onto the wall, either to make a circle or to make the negative handprint, it's almost as if they are in fact releasing a part of themselves onto the wall. The artist is projecting himself onto the rock surface, and through doing this, he becomes the horse. He is transformed into the horse. This is one of the things that we believe, in fact, could be happening here. The other cave painting that I want to show you is, sorry, let me go back, is this one. And this is something that my students love to look at and think about and wonder, what's going on here. It's called The Shaft of the Dead Man. And people look at this and they're like, okay, what is this? What is this? And what here? What is going on with this animal? So if we were in the classroom right now, I'd have you guys, you know, sort of analyze it and look at it and try to tell me what you think. So let's start with this poor guy over here, this animal. What I think is happening is he has been speared, right? He has this giant spear going through him. And in fact, his bowels, his entrails, his innards are kind of dropped here onto the ground. His head is down and he is in fact reacting. You know how if a dog gets scared, their fur stands straight up? Well, that's what's happening here. This poor guy is reacting to this pain, to this sort of, I guess, death blow. And we see emotion represented here, which is really, really incredible. Over here, it's clearly a man, right? And the question is this sort of an effigy, a representation of the hunter? You know, is he down or is he just, you know, is he on the ground? Has he been attacked by this animal or not? And what about this thing that we call the bird on the stick? Some people have said it's a rattle, like a shaman's rattle. And kind of this entire representation of something that would be like a hunting scene. So maybe the hunter would go into the cave and they'd stand before this and they would shake the rattle and they would blow their horn and they would believe that this would in fact take them out into the actual hunt to do well. But again, we don't know, right? We're guessing. Why? Because there's no recorded history. So here's sort of like a funny little cartoon. Oh, okay, guess what? It turns out it's really just a shopping list. Obviously, I don't think it's a shopping list, but it is a point that we need to remember. We are interpreting this in our 21st century way, and we're trying to assign meaning to it and to what it means. So to summarize, we know that tools and mineral pigments were used several 100,000 years ago in southern Africa. We looked at paintings in Europe that range back 32,000 years and also have been found in other places. That the paintings included stencils and complex finger markings and two-dimensional and three-dimensional, trying to create perspective and shading, very sophisticated. That the pigments, which mean the colors, demonstrate, you know, a pretty complex understanding of how to get different colors, and that the subject matter does not change, right? For thousands of years, these people are doing the same thing. So this is a really kind of interesting slide and an important slide that summarizes what is going on. What does it mean? Symbolic art, representational art. This is sort of what we have talked about in the last 30 plus minutes, right? The movable small scale sculpture and the immovable, the stationary art. So this is really what I want you guys to know about prehistoric art. I'm actually going to skip from prehistoric art right to Neolithic art, the New Stone Age or Neolithic, right? Not Paleolithic, but Neolithic. And there's one sort of Neolithic sculpture, Neolithic object that we're going to talk about, and that is Stonehenge. Okay, so when people think of the Neolithic era, they typically think of Stonehenge. And so let's talk about Stonehenge and let's think about Stonehenge. So here it is. The Neolithic Revolution, and by the way, when you guys see me showing you a gray slide like this, these are notes that I took out of your book, right? So it means it's important. It's kind of information that I want you guys to think about. The Neolithic Stone Age is a much tighter gap that we have. So we talk, say, around 10,000 to 8,000 BCE. And what happens is that there's a climate change going on. The glaciers are receding, so there's more landmass, and people are able to settle and stay in one place rather than completely moving around. And what happens when you stay in one place? You can grow stuff, right? Development of agricultural crops. You can have animals. You can domesticate animals. You can trade. You can do pottery. You can, if you're trading with people, you're probably going to need tokens to have record keeping. And also, if you're living in one place for a long time, so if you're settled up in the northern part of Europe, right, like what today would be Iceland, or not Iceland, today would be Sweden or Norway, versus if you're somebody who goes and lives in what is today Africa, you're going to look different, right? You're going to be subject to different developments and ethnic diversification. It's going to lead to a development of a multitude of art styles and cultures. So it's really, really interesting what begins to happen now in kind of the Neolithic era. Also, and this is important, I just want to show you this image. Where are we? Of tools, right? So in the Neolithic era, tools become much more developed. And so clearly, if you have better tools, you can do more things. And that's really important. Okay. So let's talk about Stonehenge for a few minutes. There's lots of very cool videos that you guys can see. What are some of the theories about Stonehenge? You can kind of think about this for a minute and write down what you think. And this is kind of the typical photograph. By the way, you cannot get this close to Stonehenge anymore, unfortunately. It was, there was some graffiti there, and people really were not treating it with the care that it deserved to be treated with, so it's quite closed off. But we date it to about 3100 BCE. And there were different phases, but it was a major project. Somebody had to really organize moving these stones that came from a distant location. And as a matter of fact, I think I can show you, this is a really cool kind of walkthrough where you can turn it and spin it, and you can see that this is what we call post and lintel system. The posts are vertical elements and the lintels are the horizontal elements. And to pull all of this and to create this this structure, you had to have a lot of coordination among people, and it didn't happen all at once. It happened really over about a 1500-year period. Okay, so the henge really means this groundwork, these big spaces in the ground. Initially, there were wooden structures there, and modern calculations show that to get to this point, to really erect these stones, it would have taken probably 500 men using leather ropes to pull one stone, with an extra 100 men who would run around and kind of lay the huge rollers in front of the sledge to then pull the stone. So the question is, what's going on here? Why was this created? Is it, something that relates to the light and the sun and the solstice? Was it an astrological observatory? Was it built by aliens? There's many, many theories about Stonehenge and what it was used for. And I invite you to do your research, think about some of your favorite ones, and come up with your own theory about Neolithic art. So that's what I wanted to teach you today. That's what we cover for our first video lecture. And please let me know. Please do the other assignments and the reading that I've posted for you. And I will be in touch and let you know about the next video we're going to learn about, which is ancient Near Eastern art. Thank you.